Hey, it's Patrick from J&P Cycles. Let's talk about one of my favorite things to do, and that is road trip on my motorcycle. But that does entail a certain amount of planning, especially if you're planning on going very far at all. And the biggest thing is packing your motorcycle. And that's kind of a really open-ended subject, especially if you've never done it before, but it really depends on your style of bike. The styles of bike vary so much, that can really look a lot different from bike to bike. Obviously, something like a bagger or an adventure touring bike is gonna have much more capacity in bags and things like that. Typically, Harley baggers have these big square bags, work really well on baggers. A lot of times you can put them on your passenger seat, lean back on them. If you do have a passenger, however, the best way to use one of these bags is to put it on a luggage rack behind the passenger, or if you have a sissy bar behind that. But even if you have that sissy bar, you're gonna need that luggage rack to keep this off your fender. Something like Cobra's big ass rack will help keep that bag off the fender. They make a really nice big rack. We'll throw a link in there for you so you can see that. Keeps it off your fender and it quickly detaches on and off. But I have found actually that a lot of the baggers are so smoothed out now, there's so many fillers and things like that, you can't actually strap as many things to them. You're hindered in a lot of ways from packing things on a bagger that's not really that don't really come on the bike. So I travel a lot on a Dyna or on smaller bikes, and I tend to be able to put a lot of stuff or pretty much everything I need on those bikes. So Sportster guys, Dyna guys, and Softail guys, even new Softail guys, you can still pack those bikes down pretty good. The Cobra rack that I just mentioned is available for those bikes, and it is detachable. I keep bringing it up because it's such a nice option. It's a very big rack, keep the big bags off your fender, snaps on and off when you're not using it. But the other thing that's very, very helpful is a sissy bar. Even one that's not on your bike all the time. Sissy bars are awesome because I use this all the time. This bag right here, this is Biltwell's X-Fill 80. I put a sissy bar on my Dyna and it hooks up to that perfectly. So I can sit this on my rear seat, the straps go through my sissy bar and I can put a ton in here. The other thing that's very helpful on Sportsters, Dyna, Softail, things like that are smaller bags. Handlebar bags like the X-Fill 7, this tank bag like this Nelson Rig one here. You can put these smaller bags places. I really like to be modular with stuff. I like to put all my tools in something, or maybe I'll put all my valuables in it. The other nice thing about putting a small bag on the bike is you can put your valuables in there. You can throw a cell phone in there, or extra cash, or if you have a camera, something like that. You can put in there, and if you go into a place, it's nice to have a small bag that pops right off, because then you can carry it in with you, carry your valuables in. Scrambler guys, like FTRs, or if you have a Sportster with like a tail section, something like that. I normally use Kriega bags. When we went down to Mexico, I rode an FTR all the way down there and back, and I used Kriega's modular system on that, and I was able to put a ton of stuff on that bike. So Scrambler guys, kind of look for a more universal type of bags. Something like this or this probably ain't gonna work too well on like an FTR style bike, but something like a Kriega US 30 or US 20 is gonna work out really well on those bikes, along with a tank bag. You're gonna be able to travel a long way. Like I said, I went 3,000 miles over the course of just over a week on an FTR, had no problem packing plenty of stuff on that bike. But let's talk about what do we take. So we figured out our luggage, what are we gonna take with us? Now, I think in the beginning when you start traveling, most people really overpack clothes. I pretty much, no matter how far I go, I'm generally about 3 sets of clothes, and that's about it. You can always find a place to wash them if you need to. You know, they are reusable. You don't have to just take as many pairs of clothes as you have nights you're gonna be away. So about 3 sets of clothes is gonna be good. I also find it nice to take layers, take a long sleeve shirt, maybe a sweatshirt. Things like that are gonna help you adjust for the weather conditions you're riding in. Another nice thing to take is rain gear. If you don't have rain gear, that's an absolute must if you're going very far at all. So layers, only about 3 pairs of clothes, rain gear. If you're camping, that's a whole other story. I'll link you to an article and a video on countersteer that'll get into the weeds on how to camp off your motorcycle. That's a little more specific. A couple other things that I don't leave home without: cargo straps and extra straps. You're always gonna need those if you pick up something, or say if you take your jacket off, need a place to put it, having an extra cargo net or a strap to strap it down with is absolute lifesaver. And speaking of lifesavers, you need to take tools. A nice little toolkit of just the basics, man. A few wrenches, Allens, needle nose pliers, something to cut wire with. I normally put some electrical tape in there, maybe a little bit of duct tape, wire, zip ties, things like that. Just get me by things. Maybe an extra set of plugs depending on if you're on an older bike. Things like that in a toolkit are essential. Now, the order you pack things is also very, very important. While we're talking about tools, definitely keep your tools where you can get to them. I really like to keep my tools separate in a little bag, something like the XFL 7 or the 80 here has a nice place. This drops down, you can put all your tools in there, no matter what it is. If you have a tool roll, put it on an outside pocket of your bag. That way, if something does happen, you have to get to it. You don't have to dig through a million things to get there. Now, something I do bury when I pack is clothes. Most of the time, that's the last thing you're gonna need to get to. Probably, you're not gonna be in that big a hurry when you're trying to get to your clothes. So those go on the bottom, and I like to put them in a waterproof bag or a waterproof compartment. The Kriega bags that I mentioned before, 100% waterproof. Love putting clothes in there. The XFL bag here is a roll top. You can put all your clothes at the bottom. Other thing is, if you're camping, sleeping bag. Again, put your sleeping bag in a waterproof container somewhere, and you'll be much, much happier after you get rained on if you have a dry sleeping bag. I like to put, like my layers I talked about, like my long sleeve or something like that, I like to put them towards the top. I like to put a towel towards the top, because those things I can get to quick. If I do need to wipe off or something, or if I do need to add an extra layer, that's to the top of the bag. Now, rain gear I mentioned before is basically essential. I put that on the outside of my luggage. That's one of the last things I normally pack. I just roll it up, put it on top of the bag, put a cargo net over the top of that. The reason I do that is generally when you need rain gear, you kind of need it pretty quick. It's right there on the top. It's not gonna get rained on, because if it's raining, you're gonna be wearing your rain gear. So I put that on the top of a bag with a cargo net so I can get to it very, very easily. If you are camping, I will say to keep your tent, whatever camping kit you have, accessible first. When you pull into camp, you don't wanna be digging through everything to get to your tent and your camp kit. I like to be able to pull in, pull my tent right off, set my tent up, and then I can put things inside my tent. If you haven't noticed, there's kind of a theme. I like to keep things modular. It just makes things easier to find and easier to access. Tools in one location, things that need to stay dry in another location, and just generally kind of modularize them into smaller bags if I can, or to kind of keep things together. It just makes it easier to find things, easier to access things. Overall, if I have one piece of advice, it's to take half of what you need and twice the cash. The more you do this, the better you're gonna get at it, and the more you're gonna realize what you don't need when you're on the road. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop us a comment. Go ride those motorcycles.